Welcome in to the opening line report. Kelly Stewart here, putting out early rage bait on Twitter. I'm in trouble already. Teddy Covers joining us here. We're going to talk about conference championships, and we're going to give you a little national championship, a little preview as well, Teddy, because I got to put myself in a conundrum. Shocker, I know. Let's get into the conference championships. I want to hear what you thought of things yesterday, right? Like I kind of pissed off some Patriots fans because I said Drake May was not a good playoff quarterback, right? The fumbles, the interceptions. Now, albeit he looked better than CJ Stroud or Caleb Williams, but good grief. Was that some sloppy football by the Patriots yesterday, even though the final score didn't reflect that?
So the weather matters. Sometimes the weather matters. 99% of NFL games, the weather doesn't matter. It mattered in New England yesterday for sure. It mattered in both of the Patriots playoff games. We talk about, let's rip Drake May, let's rip CJ Stroud. The conditions were difficult for offense in both games yesterday. The weather mattered as well in Chicago against the Rams. But it's certainly, I think the weather was as important as any other factor in the Patriots win over the Texans. And when we talk about Drake May's struggles, he was playing against the single best defense in the league in crappy conditions. We're not going to say Drake May can't play in the playoffs because he hasn't had a brilliant offensive performance. And of course, Drake May was not in a situation, Kelly, where he had to do anything because the Patriots defense was good enough to dominate both games. 2 playoff games, New England's given up 1 touchdown that came after a May interception on a 27-yard drive. So it's been the Patriots defense that's been able to control the flow, and all of this, Drake May isn't playing his best. Doesn't matter. Drake May's done everything New England's needed in a pair of double-digit victories.
Okay, fair enough. I won't rage bait Patriots fans anymore. They're already mad at me enough after yesterday. Let's get into the late game because I got to cash that Matthew Stafford under passing yards. I was like, great, we're going to overtime after he's sitting right at 205. And I was like, oh boy, buckle up. That was nice because I did expect Matthew Stafford once again on the road to struggle. Offensively, I was not impressed with the Rams whatsoever, but the Bears made enough mistakes to keep the Rams in that one. Yes, Caleb Williams had some Joe Montana-esque plays, but that was about it. Break down kind of what you saw from both of those teams yesterday and what the Rams are kind of lacking right now this late in the playoffs. I just feel like their defense stepped up enough yesterday to get them the win, but Matthew Stafford, outside of a couple of passes, I just wasn't impressed with him.
So again, in the playoffs, we're going to overreact to everything that we see. Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Fame quarterback in the midst of an MVP caliber season who just went on the road in back-to-back weeks and guided his team to tough road victories and carried them in the fourth quarter of these tough road playoff games. Matthew Stafford has been freaking brilliant. Now, yesterday, was Stafford at his absolute best? No, he was not. Were the weather conditions a factor in that? Of course they were. Again, the weather was as big as any other factor in both games yesterday. Stafford, you say, he used to play in Detroit. Yeah, he used to play inside in Detroit, and that was a half a decade ago. All right, you put Stafford in the cold when the wind chills are below 0, and you're not going to get grade A Matthew Stafford. Not going to happen, Not like we saw grade A Caleb Williams or anyone offensively. And, of course, that was the only game all weekend that stayed under the total. If you were playing favorites and overs, much to the chagrin of the book, if you're a chalk-eating weasel this weekend, you did pretty well, obviously, because the Rams were the only team that didn't cover, and the Rams were the only one that stayed under the total. Other was favorite and over, favorite and over, favorite and over for the first 3 playoff games of the weekend. And I'm sure that's not a great result for the house. And when you talk to John Murray later today or tomorrow, whenever you talk to him, I'm sure he'll express that sentiment to you. I'm sure it was not a good weekend, a particularly good weekend for the bookmakers. But to say, oh my God, Matthew Stafford didn't play the single best game any quarterback's ever played yesterday. No, he didn't. And McVay after the game's like, my play calling wasn't good. I didn't have the offense ready. McVay took the blame for not the offense not being as efficient as it was. But when you punt in OT, you're expecting to lose, and that's what the Rams did yesterday. They punted in OT, but they still found a way to win, even though they did not get the point spread money.
Yeah, we can blame my mush of a boyfriend with a Rams futures ticket. He said, I think Caleb's due for another interception. I said, he's not going to throw 3. Bears money line was a little painful, and that was my own fault, Teddy. I was complaining to you before the show. That's where bankroll management comes into play. I had a nice +4 in pocket, and I decided to hit the gas pedal on Bears money line and basically split the game. That being said, let's talk about another game that I did not hardly watch at all. So we're going to save the best game for last. That would be Broncos-Bills. But I'm hosting Saturday. I got people over for the Broncos game. What a thrilling ending. Next game, boom, right away. Seahawks touchdown. Next thing you know, I had a couple Moscow Mules, and I said, what happened to the Niners? Because I was inside, outside, grilling, doing my thing. That was that an epic performance by Seattle? Was that everything went their way? Was that the Niners' injuries just caught up with them? Just, albeit I did not watch anything but snippets of that game because it really wasn't one.
No. So for the clients and I split this weekend. I had one winner with the over in the Broncos Bills and one loser stepping in front of the Patriots again, which I could smack myself in the head for. The one I'm kicking myself about, the one that I was, I'm right there with Seattle and I don't pull the trigger. I'm like, I bet against San Fran last week and it cost me. And I'm like, I didn't get there. And I didn't get there really for one reason. That reason was Sam Darnold. I'm like, I cannot trust Sam Darnold against a good defense. I cannot trust Sam Darnold in a game of this magnitude. And Darnold was a non-factor. When you return the opening kick for a touchdown, when you run for 170 yards, and when you're playing a team, let's be honest. I mean, that was Seattle good, but it was San Fran exhaling. And we talked about it on the show last Monday, Kelly. I read a couple of quotes from the 49ers. I don't like these quotes. These are, we accomplished something quotes, not we're hungry and driving quotes. And I mean, literally that game was the opening kick was returned for a touchdown. And at no point after that did it feel like San Fran was going to make a run. They were done. They fought the good fight. They got a road playoff victory. Another one on the other side of the country wasn't happening. That was, to me, as every bit, if not more, about the 49ers who, again, for the injuries they had, for the adversity they faced this season, we can do nothing but give San Francisco credit. But they were out of steam, They knew it. They showed it. And Seattle took care of business in a game that was not all that entertaining to watch. Except the total, you had to sweat it till the fourth quarter, and it sneaks over in the fourth. So one last Seahawks touchdown.
Maybe some other people would argue with me, but I think the most entertaining game this weekend was Bills Broncos. I had a great time watching that game as a Broncos fan. I had both sides teased, so I didn't really care about the final result from a betting perspective. But man, was that was kind of a wild ending. A lot of people, if you had the Bills, were complaining about the refs. And unfortunately, Bo Nix got hurt. So we will talk about that when we talk about Broncos Patriots, because I have lots of questions. But you mentioned you had the over, Teddy. So you had a nice rocking chair winner there for your clients. Yeah.
It's good to be on the right side of some of these, although we have to talk about the three controversial. I mean, all three of them were extremely controversial. And when the refs literally go, nah, we don't want Buffalo to win here, that's an interception. And then, here's a pass interference call that's dicey. And then here's another pass interference call that's really. A lot of these games played over the weekend, the teams had one penalty, two penalties. The refs did a good job of swallowing their whistles unless they had to. And in that game, you had a very controversial. I mean, again, I had no play on the side either. And if you have both sides teased, it doesn't matter. But that interception's got to be reviewed, okay? When I watched the first slow-mo, I'm like, I watch it. I watch a ton of NFL. That's all I do every week is watch NFL. And I watched the replay. I'm like, I don't know what. Wow, that's a really tough call. I didn't know. And next thing I was like, no, it's interception. Ball going this way. It's like, what? You can understand why McDermott was as mad as he was after the game. And then the two pass interference calls. I mean, I don't think either one of them is legit in that situation to make that call to say, all right, I thought there were very tough calls against Buffalo, And again, I got no skin in the game. I'm not Bills Mafia. I'm not Broncos fan. But you don't want refs deciding who goes to the next round. And if he tackles them, sure. But the dicey calls, the 50-50 calls, dude's got to keep his flag in his pocket there. So, I mean, Bills, and then today, you know, with the repercussions with McDermott getting fired this morning off of that, that's tough, Bills, Mom. I mean, that's really tough. Now, let's give Denver credit. You know, they did what they needed to do. They won the game, but the refs gave them the game, and that's not appropriate at this stage. The refs gave them the game. They did, you know.
Hey, listen, like I said, I was watching. There was a 30 people at my house watching. So you're catching glimpses, you're hearing oohs and ahs, you're walking in and out, and next thing you know, you're like, I'll take it. I guess it's just one of those things, Teddy. As a Broncos fan, I have had horrific calls go against me. So when calls go my direction, I just say, oh, well, but you're right. We never want referees being able to influence the games. Unfortunately, it happens every single week in the NFL. They are humans as well. They do make mistakes. Let's get into these conference championship games, though, because go ahead.
So I just want to ask you, if we're going to talk national championship game tonight, we should do that. I thought we were going to do that off the top. So
we'll do it right now. We'll do national championship first before we get into conference championships. If you guys have a question regarding the national championship, please let me know. Teddy, I have spent the last 2 weeks teasing the national championship. Indiana down below a field goal, -1.5, -2, with a bunch of different NFL. It pretty much all worked out for me as a whole. I have six legs teased with the Indiana Hoosiers. And yesterday I said, all right, I got to take I got too much liability here on Indiana, basically to win the game, right? Like, obviously I need them to win by 2, but to essentially just win the game, I think I've overexposed myself. I don't love this game one way or another. So I did take some Miami plus 8.5 this morning, opened up my odds logic screen, lots of 7.5s popping up. So people either said, hey, this line has gotten out of control, or maybe what's going on here? Are we seeing sharp money at 8.5, or are we just seeing people finally starting to buy in on the Hurricanes?
So this is what we've seen on this line. Okay. It opened 7.5. Okay. And we talked about it and said, there's only one way it can go from here right now, because they didn't take the 7.5 right away. It wasn't going down. It was only going up. And I dawdled, and, you know, and said, moved up, and boom, 8.5. At 8.5, it stuck. All right. Didn't go any further. Whatever public support there was for Indy, I didn't move the number. And I said, all right, it's going to come back down. And in my write-up for the clients, I even wrote, this line's coming the other way. So be ready when it comes down. And obviously that's what we've seen now. We've seen it drive back down to 7.5. I would not be shocked if we see some 7s. The Sharps do like Miami in this ballgame. Again, the look-ahead line for this was 5, 5.5. So the fact that we're seeing 7.5, 8, 8.5 tells us the reaction of what we've seen from Indiana just last game. You know, with Indiana, obviously, with 2 blowout victories here in the playoffs. And we talk about every team gets tested. You know, that's something I remember I always talked about in the NCAA tournament. And then all of a sudden you get a team like UConn that goes 6 games and beats all 6 by double-digit margins. You go, well, everyone gets tested most of the time. You know, Indiana certainly played like a team that is on a mission, you know, and that being said, this is certainly a point spread that is a little bit out of whack with A, what we've seen for the Hoosiers all season. B, Miami hasn't been a dog this big all year. You know, I mean, they haven't lost a game this big all year. You know, the Hurricanes 2 losses by a field goal or an OT and by 6. So it's not like they've been blown off the field by anyone. So in terms of what's going to happen today, we've already seen under money come in. This was at 48.5 at the open. Now I'm seeing 47/47.5. I'm not convinced we're going to see any more under money. We could, but I think 47 is about as low as it's going to go. From a side standpoint, again, we're seeing the money coming right now for Miami. You know, I'm seeing 7.5 even money here in Las Vegas. I'm seeing 7.5 at plus money in the global market. So we're definitely seeing some wise guy support for the Miami Hurricanes as we speak. That said, you know, we expected the wise guys to be on Miami because the number's higher than it was supposed to be just a week ago. That said, I'm not convinced that it's going to go down to 7. We could. You know, we've seen some crazy line moves the last hour or two before kickoff in national titles games. You know, I remember a good handful of them where, I remember USC, Oklahoma, where USC's laying 3 and then all of a sudden it's pick 'em. You know, so this line could move back down to 7. It could even go below, but sometimes you do see a groundswell support. I'm not convinced that's going to be the case today. 7.5 feels to me like where it's going to go off at. If it goes off anywhere else, more likely to be 7 than 8 in this bettor's opinion, at least in the books that cater to.
Teddy, we've got some questions in the chat regarding this game. One of our WagerTalk insiders has Indiana minus 5.5. Now, the 10.5s are long gone. That would have been a nice middle position. But as it currently stands, if you get 8 or 8.5, how big of a gap are you looking to middle games, right? I know guys that lay 7 all day and take 7.5 all day. That's what they do. 3.5, 7, especially in the NFL, right? But in terms of this national championship, if you can still get a 3-point middle, let's say that for some reason he has a local that's still hanging an 8.5. If you can get a 3-point middle on this game, do you think that is worth taking? Obviously, I did because of the teaser side of things, hoping to get a little greedy. Maybe Indiana wins by, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. That's a pretty sizable middle there. 3 points, 2 points, even now with it being 7.5. I'm not sure I'd be trying to thread that needle.
So I'm not a middler. All right. If you're a high volume player and you're consistently able to get reduced juice bets down, you can absolutely play a middling game. But that takes being at the screen. And, it's not something you want to do one. It's something you want to do again and again and again. It's something that you're going to do every single day. That's not how I bet. That's not how I handicap. That's not my MO. Okay. So, the best advice I ever got from middling was from my old dear departed friend, Dave Malinsky. He said, real simple. You're thinking about middling a game. All right. Start with the first bet you have. Right. The bet you already have down. He's like, do you still like that bet? If you still like that bet, then you hold it. If you no longer like that bet, then you look for ways to get off it. So the whole handicap comes with the first bet you make, the first part of the middle. Do you like Indiana minus 5.5, or do you not like that bet anymore? If you like Indiana minus 5.5, you hold it. Don't worry about middling. If you don't like the bet anymore, you say, yeah, I'm reading the tea leaves, and I'd rather have Miami plus than Indiana minus right now. That's when you look to get off that bet, and you can obviously do it with a positive expectation scenario if you can catch plus 8.5. But if you're looking to middle around a key number, again, you can profitably middle at reduced juice 6.5, 7.5. It's a lot, but it's not something that's going to happen once. You have to do it over and over and over again. And if you win, 1 out of 10, you're doing fine. And in theory, you're supposed to win more than that. So, but it's not something that being that type of a bettor, a middler per se. It's difficult, man. It really is. It's a hard way to make an easy living. But in terms of what do I do with my Indiana minus, if you like Indiana minus 5.5, you don't do a damn thing. You hold it. Maybe in the middle, look for something in game. But if you got itchy, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I love this bet anymore. You look for the best number you can find on Miami, and you bet it, or you take some Miami money line. That's the other option. But that'll make you have to risk less on the second side of the leg than you would if you're laying minus 110.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, Teddy, is debating on how much I want to have on Miami. I bet a couple dimes yesterday. Now I'm 7.5 across the board as I was just looking. So I may just say, all right, I got a little bit off of Indiana. Let's gamble and see how this national championship goes. Any other advice for anyone betting the national championship tonight?
So as we get to this point of the season, we have to, there's a couple disclaimers we got to give. Okay. First, there ain't no bad point spreads this time of year. All right. And I was like, oh, this is not a bad, the books don't know what they're doing. Oh, these guys are idiots. That ain't the case. All right. So we're going to see a fair few games, and it may not be this game, but certainly yesterday and over the course of the weekend, you're seeing games coming fairly close to the point spread. So be aware when it comes to A, bet sizing, and B, the number of bets you're going to make. This is not we're going to go crazy and make 5,000 big bets on this game, or 50 big bets on this game. It's not positive expectation in that regard. So this is a time of year where you definitely want to bet with your head, not over it, like the slogan goes for problem gaming. And be aware, okay? I know there's people that struggle with gaming. This time of year is particularly rough. If you're blowing through your bankroll, get help now. This is not a scenario where you want to get, the weeks leading up to and the Super Bowl itself are the most difficult time for compulsive bettors and compulsive gamblers. So be aware. If this gig is too much, walk away and get some help. If you're betting within reason and you're comfortable with your wagering habits and sizes, like I am, Kel, like you are, I believe, then this can be a whole lot of fun.
It definitely can be. But I still think, like I said, in the Bears game, I had the +4, and I thought, man, I think the Bears are going to win this game. I'm looking at it a little bit more. I see it go to 4 again, and I'm like, I'm betting the money line. I'm doing it. And then I bet the money line, and then I looked at another account, and I was like, I should have looked here first because it's 10 cents better. And then I bet the money line again. So that was my own fault for not bet sizing correctly. So even I do make mistakes or do degenerate things from time to time, Teddy. That, you wake up Monday morning and you're like, all right, idiot, way to go. Don't do that again. So hopefully I will not make those same mistakes going forward. Let's get into these conference championships. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We haven't done the basic tenets of an opening line report yet. So
right.
Yeah, I'm
20 minutes in, we got almost 2,000 of you guys watching. If you guys have a question for Teddy, we're opening it up for these conference championship games. We're going to go right into the first game, and that would be the New England Patriots at the Denver Broncos. And hey, look, right here, Charles has the same question I have. Is this the biggest injury move ever? I had with Knicks, I had the Broncos favored. I did not have the Broncos favored with Bo Nix, Teddy. I text John Murray, my good friend CT. I said Broncos. I go Broncos pick 'em. Broncos +1 is where I'm thinking this line would have been with Bo Nix. Now I said I'm going to say Broncos +3, 2 points, 2.5 points with Jarrett Stidham, 4.5, and I'm going, what am I missing here? This seems a little overblown. You mentioned overreactions. Break down this one for us. What did you make the line with Bo Nix? What do you make the line with Jarrett Stidham? Where are we looking at for this AFC Championship game?
So the look-ahead line here had, from the potential hypothetical matchups, had Denver -1. There were pick'ems. It was in that range. And that's where my power rating was. My power rating for a healthy Denver and a healthy New England had this game pick'em or New England -0.5 point. I made a 5-point. I'm sorry, no, Denver -0.5 point. I made a 5-point adjustment for the injury from the transition from Bo Nix to Jarrett Stidham. I don't know if that is the right number. Okay, that's as guesstimate can be. And you're sitting there going, all right, well, let's see. One guy has played fairly well, but not at a Pro Bowl level, and the other guy hasn't taken a snap in 2 years. One guy's guided the team to a whole bunch of come-from-behind victories, though, and the other one hasn't. Maybe 5 points isn't enough. The markets obviously have adjusted more. With that 5-point adjustment, my number came New England -4.5. The markets were at 5.5 last night. That's basically what I'm seeing today, 5.5. There is still a 4.5 out there at the Superbook here in Vegas. Total sitting 41/41.5 for New England and Denver. So to say that anyone knows what the adjustment should be from Nix to Stidham isn't real, because nobody knows. The bookmakers don't know. The bettors don't know. We don't know what we're going to see from Jarrett Stidham. We really don't. But we have a conceptual framework of how to approach a team with a veteran starting Q, with a veteran backup QB, and what has happened in previous instances when QBs have gotten hurt, like, for example, Carson Wentz getting hurt for Philadelphia, and then Nick Foles coming in and leading the Eagles to a Super Bowl title less than a decade ago. So, in fact, and when Sean Payton was talking about the injury, he started talking about all the guys who have been able to have success. Teddy Bridgewater going 5-0 with the Saints when Drew Brees was hurt. The Texans going 3-0 with Davis Mills this year. His quote, plan has always got to be to build on the type of skill sets and players you're playing with. Are there certain things Bo does differently than Stiddy? Absolutely. So it's certainly a scenario for
Teddy. Can I interject?
Of course.
You mentioned Nick Foles, and Nick Foles had a really funny tweet, if you guys didn't see it, about being able to beat the Patriots. I'm going to say this. as a Broncos fan, I've seen this team fall flat on their face versus the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl, right? Started with that fumble right out of the gate with Peyton Manning, and then turn right around and have the same Peyton Manning, who was 2 years older, who was like a statue out there. Now, I understand it was still Peyton Manning, but it was that defense. If we're betting on Denver, does it really matter? I haven't bet on Bo Nix one time this season. I have only ever bet on the Denver Bronco defense. Does that make sense? Like, I know it sounds interesting to say, but if Jarrett Stidham's been in this organization for 3 years, right? I'm not even going to talk about the fact that he's practiced with this team and understands this organization, or that he's even comparable to Bo Nix. But Bo Nix is not without faults. He turns the ball over. He makes dumb mistakes. We've seen it because he is a young quarterback. Jarrett Stidham is older and has been in this organization just as long. Does that not? I mean, I get that people want to see somebody pass the eye test, but I want somebody who can just manage the game and let your defense go out there and win it for you. If Drake May fumbles twice and throws an interception, there is no doubt in my mind the Denver Broncos will win this football game.
So sounds to me like you like Denver, and you think the markets have overreacted to the absence of Bo Nix. Now, Denver had, 13 cover behind wins this year?
Yeah, which is crazy.
So we have to give Bo Nix a little bit of credit for that, don't we?
Sure. Yeah. Listen, I would agree with that. But I also think that Bo Nix is the reason why they were behind. Remember that Titans game where we came on here and I said, Teddy, I feel sick to my stomach. I'm going to take the Denver Broncos week 1 in Survivor with everybody else. I said, if we get bad Bo Nix, they could lose this game. And we got bad Bo Nix. I think he had 2 interceptions and a fumble. And it was just, thank God the Texans defensive backs couldn't catch the ball, and neither could the Titans wide receivers. Remember, Cam Ward actually had some great passes and they just kept getting dropped. I am not some Broncos homer. I have been against this team when needed. Got lucky against that Colts field goal kick. Speaking of crazy referee calls that go your way, if I'm betting on Denver, I'm betting on the defense. I don't care who the quarterback is. It could be you for all I care.
So the Broncos defense yesterday or over the weekend, let's see, the Bills didn't punt. That's all you need to know. The Bills didn't punt.
Fair enough.
The Giants scored 32 against them. Okay. It's a Denver defense that, just like the quarterback play, has been up and down. I don't think it's Seattle's defense. I don't think it's Houston's defense. And it's kind of shown over the course of the season that Denver's defense is good, but perhaps not as elite as some of the elitists in the league. That being said, can this defense, in theory, carry them to victory? Of course they can. It's not like this defense is hopeless or useless. Jarrett Stidham is someone worth talking about. All right, career numbers for Jarrett Stidham: 117 completions, 197 attempts. So he's in his career, he's got 197 attempts. He's got came out of Auburn in 2018. 1,400
he
yards.
He a lot better at Baylor than I remember. He was a better Baylor quarterback than he was an Auburn quarterback. How about that?
7.2 yards per pass attempt, 19 sacks on those 197 attempts. So he's been once every 10 times he dropped back to pass, he's hit the turf. What are those numbers? They're not.
And those are all Patriots numbers, correct? When he played for the Patriots?
No. So the last time he started week 17 and 18 for Sean Payton in Denver in 2023 after Russell Wilson was back.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Here's the Peyton quote. I know how he was coached in New England. I know exactly how he was coached in New England. And then I know how Josh McDaniels felt about him. But ultimately, in our 3 years here, so our 3 years watching him day in and day out, he will be ready to go. Sam Ehlinger is going to be the backup. They just signed Ben DiNucci to the practice squad. So they have a third string emergency QB. More Peyton quotes. Quote, splitting reps on offense just doesn't happen. In a work week, the reps are limited and the starter wants them. But one of Stiddy's strengths is his mental aptitude and his progressions and understanding plays. There will be practices, and I'm looking at DC Vance Joseph getting pissed off because Stiddy's making our defense look bad. He's very accurate. He's got a lot to his ball. So certainly there appears to be a level of confidence for the Broncos staff with their backup QB. But of course, again, they were +4 in turnovers last week. And when you're +4 in turnovers and barely survive in overtime, it speaks to some concerns. And again, it's not like the Broncos defense has been a problem area all year long, but they've, as much as any team in the league, Denver's played complementary football. The games where the offense hasn't played well, the defense has stepped up. The games where the defense hasn't played well, the offense has been able to step up. But, it's a Patriots team. For all the success they had, they got 13 first downs yesterday. 3 of 14 on third downs, 248 total yards, 3.9 yards per play. Those are not, let's go to the Super Bowl type of offensive numbers. And yet the defense has played so well, it was good enough to win by a double-digit margin. And there were lots of quotes after the game, Kelly, talking about how this defense felt disrespected because the Texans were the team that were getting all the hype. And, of course, one of the things that I remember when the Colts won their Super Bowl, the Peyton Manning's only Super Bowl title in Indy, and they had these dismal defensive numbers, and the defense got healthy right in the postseason. New England, since started the last couple of weeks in the playoffs, they've gotten back from injury. Milton Williams, Chris Tonga, Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, all of these guys sat out time at the end of the regular season, and they've all been contributors here in the postseason. And this defense has been dominant in 2 playoff games. Now, the weather had a piece of the equation, and they played 2 warm weather teams in terms of the Chargers and the Texans. Now they're leaving the friendly confines of Foxborough, and they're playing a cold weather team in a cold weather environment. So they're not going to have that edge. But clearly, we've seen this defense really step up. Drake May, props to our defense. They played great. It was tough, battle of the elements. We knew they were going to be a good defense, but our defense helped us all night. So, when you're dominating the other team, and the Patriots were able to shut down the Texans' running game completely. If they can do that to Denver, they're going to win this game. They're going to cover this point spread. But, they're going to win this game. They may or may not cover the point spread. But if they can shut down the Broncos' running game, because Denver has to run the football in this contest. That said, we look at the 2 offensive lines that New England just beaten up on. The Chargers' offensive line had some problems. The Texans' offensive line had some problems. The Broncos' offensive line, arguably as good as any in football. Different type of challenge for New England stopping the run this week compared to last week. Drake May is going to have to play better than he has in those 2 games at home. But let's see what the weather is. The weather could be a whole lot better this week than last week. For the let's not forget, all the Patriot stats here in the postseason have to be weather, at least as you're thinking about them, they have to be weather adjusted because it's been lousy weather for both Patriots games, and that's helped them hurt their opponents more than it's hurt them, even though it's hurt their own offensive efficiency.
All right, Teddy, I know we can talk about this game forever, but I do have 2 things I wanted to bring up. And I know we said we're going to run fast, and we still have another game to go over. And I'm going to save this question for Marco D'Angelo and bet on it. But I do wonder how you handicap something like this, because there is no way to quantify. The injured player theory Marco talks about all the time. Your star quarterback, Bo Nix, gets hurt on the last play of the game in some weird fluky incident. And now you've got the next guy up, Jarrett Stidham. How does the rest of the team respond? I mean, the reason why this is a theory and why people use it as a handicap is because it does seem that the team rallies around guy number 2. The problem is the math guys are going to say, cool, what does that do for the point spread?
Well, again, in this instance right now, and by the way, this is worth talking. In fact, let's not talk about it. Get your little siren out. Dan, get the theme going, because the market's moving right now. All right. And again, was Patriots -4.5 was my powering number. The markets were at 5.5 last night. This morning they were at 5.5. Boom! Right now, circa back down to 4.5. Global markets down to 4.5. There's still plenty of 5.5s out there for New England, but if you like Denver, grab the +5.5 now. We are seeing movement in the other direction, even with the loss of Bo Nix and the ascension of Jarrett Stidham to the starting QB position for the Broncos. So we are seeing Denver money right now. And again, I made a 5-point adjustment between the 2 QBs, and I came up with New England -4.5. The markets are moving that direction right now. The 5.5s may not be there an hour or 2 from now, so I would bet them sooner rather than later if you like the Denver side.
Sweet. Okay. All right, we're in. We're in with the 5.5, Teddy. That's all I needed to hear. This is why I love doing the show. This is basically what I do all show long is I live bet with Teddy. Last question, Teddy, only because I know it's going to get the comment section upset and we're going to rage bait some people. Chris Thurston texted me last night, but Cal, why don't you say like every other sharp guy on X about how the Patriots haven't played anybody? And I go, the fact that they haven't played anybody is just what it is. Their strength of schedule. They have to play the schedule that's in front of them, correct? But Teddy, what are your thoughts on that strength of schedule argument? This is going to be one of the best teams that the Patriots have faced all season long.
So I agree with that assessment. One of the reasons I've lost money betting against New England here in the postseason is because of the strength of schedule issues for the Patriots, and it's cost me money. So do you flip here? Maybe. I can tell you this, I'm not laying this price with New England after I've already faded them twice. I mean, they're betting against the Patriots, so I'm not going to play the game. But certainly, now I'm sorry, Kel, I've got lost. What's exactly the question that I'm supposed to be answering?
No, the argument is the Patriots haven't played anybody, right?
Oh,
but it doesn't matter. They keep winning these games, and they keep winning them by margin, aka covering the spread. They haven't played anybody, but they single-handedly took care of Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Maybe weather was a factor. CJ Stroud, 5 interceptions. Kudos to that Patriots defense. When I hear these arguments over and over and over again, and then the eye test is it doesn't matter. The Patriots are still winning by margin. What do we do with that type of information? Because there are going to be handicappers that press that all week long saying, guess what? The Patriots don't deserve to be X, when the reality is maybe they do. You just mentioned earlier in the national championship, the bookmakers are not giving out freebies at this time of the year. They're not saying, oh yeah, here, have this crazy number because we're wrong in the market.
The Patriots went to Buffalo and beat Buffalo. They went to Baltimore and beat Baltimore on the road. So it's not like they didn't beat anyone all season. And here in the postseason, so I don't have New England power rated as high as the Rams or the Seahawks. Nobody does, I don't think. And we look at the AFC NFC lines, the Rams and the Seahawks are both going to be favored over whoever comes out of the AFC. All right. But at this stage, after winning a pair of playoff games, after showing in the regular season they can go on the road and beat quality teams, the strength of schedule argument has come, it's gone. Strength of schedule stuff works in the wild card round. It doesn't work after that. After that, you have teams in their own momentum. And and you nailed it in terms of you can only play who's on your schedule. That's all you get. You don't get to say, oh, well, this opponent's too weak. Let me switch it out and play someone tougher. You don't get that choice.
All right. I'm not a meteorologist, and I do not play one here on WagerTalk TV, but it looks like it's going to be 48 degrees and sunny in Denver over the weekend. So take that for what you will. Teddy covers 2,100 people watching us live. Shout out to all of you guys, especially our WagerTalk insiders. Make sure you guys give us that like and hit that subscribe button. We just hit 240,000 subscribers yesterday when Ariel Epstein was hosting Last Call with Teddy. It was amazing. So thank you to all of you guys. Teddy, really quickly before we get into the NFC Championship game, I know I was long-winded about the other game because I just wanted to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you got going on at WagerTalk.com. College basketball, NBA, national championship is tonight. Conference championships are this weekend. WT.buzz/TC to get on board with Teddy.
Yeah, so we're in play for the national title game tonight. You can go to my homepage, WT.buzz/TC. Obviously, Kelly just told you. We will be in play on, obviously, the conference championship games. The football's been pretty good, man. I mean, we split out this weekend. I'm mad at myself for not playing. Well, we'll talk about it. For not playing Seattle against San Fran. I think I talked about it already, but I'm still mad at myself.
It's okay. We can still be mad at ourselves. I'm still mad for betting Bears money line.
I should have. I really, it was doesn't matter. It's over, and we rearview mirror it. But bottom line is, we're in play in the national title game. We'll be in play, obviously, for conference championship weekend. I'm passing on the college hoops slate today. We may well have NBA up and available later. I didn't have a chance to do it before I came on air with the 8 a.m. Pacific time start to the show. So we'll post NBA as soon as we're done. So we'll have that up by should be available an hour from now or less. We should have the association.
All right, Justin's getting angry at me in the comment section. Let's get on to the Seahawks-Rams game, blabbermouth. Sorry, Justin. Here you go. Let's get into this. Sorry, Teddy. I just cared so much more about the AFC Championship game, and maybe I should care more about this one. We talked about Matthew Stafford and some of his pitfalls yesterday in the cold weather there in Chicago. Now they're going to face a division opponent for the third time this year. Talk to me about the Rams at Seattle. I was surprised to see this one come out a little shorter than I had expected.
So Seattle, my powering number for the game came 2.5. The market's open. There were 2.5s and 3s last night. 47.5 the prevailing total. We're still seeing 47.5s. We're seeing 47s. There's 48s out there in the betting market. So the total's a little bit. I'm not convinced. The markets know which way they're going to move on the total just yet. And from a side standpoint, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3. It is bouncing as we speak. So it's not a scenario where you have to rush to grab one or the other. That said, I don't think it's going to hurt you to grab, if you like Seattle, lay 2.5 now. If you like the Rams, find a +3 now. The line's going to settle likely at one of the two, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be 2.5 with juice or 3 at plus money. But where it settles, it's not going to hurt you to lock it. If you want the 2.5, grab the 2.5 with the favorite. If you want the dog, find a +3 with the dog. These are good scenarios for bettors, not bad scenarios. When there's line variance, it allows you to shop for the best of the number, and that's one of the things I harp on this show is making sure that you shop for the best of the number and get the free half points, not the ones that you have to pay for. But, again, my number's 2.5. The markets are 2 3/4 right now, 47.5/47 prevailing total as we speak. And we're not seeing a whole lot of movement on this game like we just saw the money coming in for Denver a few minutes ago. Obviously, if the Patriots, what do we have? We have Patriots played Seattle and Denver played Seattle. So if Seattle wins, you get a Super Bowl rematch. Doesn't matter. They had the back-to-back years. If the Rams win, it'll be a different matchup. But if Seattle wins, it's going to be a rematch regardless. A relatively recent rematch. Talking about the last decade or so. And that Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl, always one of my favorites. Even though it was not entertaining in the slightest, there's nothing like the first play of the game and you get a safety. You're like, yeah, this game feels over already.
It was over already, Teddy. I was at the D with Derek Stevens, and I was like, get me out of here. I hate this team. So I think that was the day I lost my actual fandom for the Denver Broncos. Sure, I was like, Peyton Manning, see you later. Hit the road, you old man.
No, see, I thoroughly enjoyed that game because I had
the Sharps were on Seattle.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And I remember Phil Ivey was in the nightclub and he goes, Kelly, you have to bet Seattle. And I was like, I'm not betting Seattle, Phil. So Seattle was the play.
2.5/3, the number right now, 47.5. Well, for the Rams. Okay. Why is the number, did you say this number came shorter than you thought we were going to, Kelly, or higher?
I thought we'd see 3.5. I thought we'd see 4. I really thought based on recency bias. And then when you said you made the game 2.5, I guess I was weighing a little too heavily on the final results of some of these Seattle blowouts lately. And I haven't been that high on the Rams.
So the Rams finished +3 in turnovers yesterday. The offense didn't commit any. In the nasty conditions at Soldier Field, they still didn't commit any turnovers. They only had 1 penalty. So no turnovers, 1 penalty, and they still didn't cover. Matthew Stafford, quote, it was crazy. It was back and forth. We didn't play our best on offense. Our defense dominated the game. Unbelievable to watch. Hell of a play on 4th down to Caleb to get his team to overtime. And I'm just glad we got the ball back. And that was, when you talk about that 4th down completion from Caleb Williams where he dropped back 25 yards and chucked it off his back foot. And, oh, by the way, Cole Kmet catched it. It gave everyone who had the Rams a heart attack, even though the Rams ended up getting, and of course, cost the Rams getting the win, but not the cover for that ball game. So, Stafford, first game all year, he didn't throw a touchdown pass. So he did again. He led a 91-yard touchdown drive in the 4th quarter with the game on the line. We can't give Stafford too much grief for that. And Devontae Adams didn't play. Wasn't a factor in the ball game. He didn't have a catch in the first 3 quarters. 2 catches for 24 yards. But of course, what did the Rams defense do? Well, they stopped Chicago down to the 2-yard line, and they forced him into the 4th down conversion on the final drive, which ended up being completion. I'll give the Rams credit defensively for what they were able to do in that ball game. And of course, what are we seeing from Stafford now? Back-to-back games where he's had to make plays on the road in difficult environments and able to do it. But his numbers in Chicago weren't particularly good. It was like, it's the worst he played all year. His drop-back success rate was 31.8%. His previous low was 41.2%. The Rams passing game is broken now. No, it's not. They played in tough environments, and hard weather. So he still obviously has dealing with injuries, and Stafford is certainly, the fact that he didn't get that extra day's worth of rest, maybe that matters. And of course, you're going up to Seattle where they led 30-14 in the fourth quarter earlier this year and found a way to lose that ball game. Two great games between the Seahawks and the Rams. In Seattle, we talked about, LA playing finishing +3 in turnovers. Seattle finished +3 in turnovers. Talk about the Rams only committing 1 penalty. The Seahawks only committed 2 penalties for 5 yards. All right. Now that had a lot to do with San Francisco. Seattle scored 41 points on 281 yards worth of offense. You had Rashid Shaheed bringing the opening kickback. And again, we talk about just like that first play of the Super Bowl where the Broncos have the safety and the routes on for Seattle. As soon as Shaheed ran that kickback, it felt over right there. Seahawks defense pretty dominant in that contest. They ran for 175 yards. And when you don't have to make Sam Darnold make plays, you can run the football and rely on your defense, Seattle can win games and cover point spreads and win them by margin. But I'm telling you flat out, I know it cost me a bet not trusting Sam Darnold. All right. Sam Darnold, since week 11, 27th in the NFL in QBR. Okay. His air yards per target's way down. His accuracy numbers are down. There are certainly concerns about a QB that has struggled against quality defenses now, in theory, playing a quality Rams defense. Of course, he lit this defense up a couple of weeks ago, but we remember the 38-37 overtime thriller in week 16 that allowed Seattle to play this game at home as opposed to on the road. That game, to say that every break went in the Seahawks' favor isn't strong enough. Every break went in the Seahawks' favor down the stretch of that contest. That's how they were able to win. And there's a reason here why the Seahawks not favored by even a field goal in this one, at least not yet. There's still a lot of respect for LA in the betting marketplace. And if you ask me where this line is going to land, I think it's going to land 2.5 more than 3. As I'm thinking about it, as I've talked through it, this line's not a 3. It's a 2.5. There's still a lot of respect out there for LA as what many people thought was the best team in the league going into the postseason. All they've done is win 2 playoff games, and they don't have the betting bandwagon because they failed to cover either one of them. Now they're dogs.
Yeah.
I think 2.5 is. I think it's more likely to go off 2.5 than 3, as long as the weather isn't disastrous.
Yep, and that's where I'm getting ready to chime in, putting on my meteorologist hat for Sunday, which of course is subject to change. I think in my next life, Teddy, I'm going to be a meteorologist. People don't get near as mad about those predictions, but it does say 50%.
They get madder.
I'm teasing. I'm like, no matter what you do, it's like they said it was going to rain today and the sun is shining. 50% chance of showers all day in Seattle, 48 degrees. You mentioned the weather. The first time the Rams played the Panthers, that was a factor. It wasn't as bad the second time in Carolina. Still no cover by the Rams. Sunset, 5 p.m. in Seattle on Sunday night. It's going to be chilly, possibly rainy. Do you think that is something we need to consider when placing a wager on Matthew Stafford?
So it's not Rams. If it's not Rams weather, you want to be aware. There's 3 cold weather teams and 1 warm weather team still standing. So, and LA hasn't covered yet in the postseason. Okay,
2.5. I know I don't have anything to tease it with, but if you had a leg to tease the Rams with, are we looking at Rams over a touchdown?
Sure, there's worse bets than that. I would expect a competitive game.
So we're not expecting San Fran 2.0. We're not expecting a dominant Seattle Seahawks performance. We're expecting a knife fight like we saw last night in Chicago, where it's back and forth, and either team could possibly win it regardless of the point spread.
So I'm going to think about it before I say exactly how I think this game's going to go.
Okay.
I'm very much worried about the Rams having just played 2 physical games and Seattle just had a laugher.
And on the road.
So you say, could the Seahawks run them out? Yeah, the Seahawks could run them out. Of course they could. They're from a physically fresh standpoint, these teams are in very different positions right now.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, not 100%. We know that. We've heard different, we'll call them rumors, right? I haven't seen his throwing hand. Like, you don't see him wincing in pain, right, mid-game, or at least I didn't yesterday. But that was a factor as why I like the Bears. I think they've been kind of hiding some of his injuries for a better part of the season. If you remember, when we did the opening line report way back in August, I asked you, I said, well, is Matthew Stafford going to be healthy? And by all intents and purposes, he looks like he's been pretty healthy.
Yeah, sure. But and again, older QBs at this stage of the season playing in weather, you can have issues. That being said, they've won, but from a freshness standpoint, Seattle had a week off and a blowout. Rams did not have a week off. They had back-to-back barn burners on the highway coming down to the final play. So, and now traveling for a third straight week. So from a freshness standpoint, Seahawks have a big edge. Is that going to matter? We'll find out on Sunday.
All right, Teddy covers on the opening line report every single week here Monday mornings with me. Wager Talk today is up next. Andy Lang and Dan Alexander. So make sure you guys hang around in about 8 minutes. Teddy, any final thoughts for our audience before we get out of here?
Enjoy the games. Good luck. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, listen, we talked about 240,000 of you who've subscribed to Wager Talk TV. If you haven't done it right now, just hit subscribe. It's so simple. We do a ton of real quality content, free content every day. Get it for free. Get instant alerts when it goes live. Subscribe. Thank you. We appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments. Kelly and I both get in there and try to answer. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below on YouTube. We appreciate it so much. And again, check out my homepage, wt.buzz/TC. I know last week wasn't my best. That being said, I haven't given up and we'll be just fine in the long term. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching and good luck this week. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Good luck this week. We'll see you guys next Monday morning. Same time, same place.